Afternoon, everybody. At some point soon, Jody Wilson-Raybould is scheduled to testify at the Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights. But she sent a letter to the chair of that standing committee, Mr. Housefather, and here's Power and Politics tweeting about it. Quote, Wilson-Raybould tells Justice Committee Chair in letter that she would like to make an extended opening statement, 30 minutes, when she speaks to committee. At Puglass says she'd prefer not to schedule appearance until she has clarity on solicitor-client privilege, etc. Hashtag Canada Poly. And here is the letter. It's got beautiful letterhead there. It's got House of Commons letterhead, and it says, Honorable Jody Wilson-Raybould, February 25th. That's today. And it says, Dear Mr. Housefather, I am writing to follow up on your invitation to appear before the Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights. I am anxious to appear at the first available time. However, I believe that in advance of my appearance, the members of the committee and I should have as much clarity as we can in relation to the possible constraints on the matters about which I may properly testify. Those possible constraints include solicitor-client privilege, cabinet confidence, and parliamentary convention relating to matters before the courts, the so-called, quote, sub-justice convention. As you know, I have taken legal advice concerning these matters. The government can waive solicitor-client privilege and cabinet confidence. I cannot. As to the sub-justice, convention, I believe that it would be useful for the committee to have before it an authoritative statement of the scope of that convention before I testify. I would prefer not to schedule my appearance before the committee until we all have whatever clarity we can about these issues. Once we have that clarity, I will be pleased to appear before the committee at the first available opportunity. When I appear, I request the opportunity to make an extended opening statement of approximately 30 minutes, during which I propose to give the committee my best recollection of all the relevant communications about which I may properly testify. I will remain before the committee to answer questions for as long as the committee wishes. I trust that this is satisfactory and, of course, would be pleased to discuss any of this with you. Respectfully, Ms. Wilson-Raybould. So, interesting. She wants to make a statement about what she recalls about the interactions and etc. Very interesting. This bomb is going to detonate. Mr. Trudeau has been keeping this under wraps and trying to get his story out ahead of Miss Wilson-Raybould getting her story out. And he's the one who controls how much of her story gets out and privilege, etc. So it's quite interesting that he's allowed to talk at length about their privilege conversations, but she is not. It's so interesting. And a terrible standard for a government to set. Just an awful standard for government to set. This is an interesting article I came across. Somebody reliable tweeted it out, and I found it interesting. I know nothing about the Buffalo Chronicle. I Googled this as well to see if any Canadian news media or anybody else had picked this up. And yes, after you've finished laughing, the short answer is no, nobody else is picking this up. So this could be National Enquirer level garbage, or it could be an early reporting of a severe misstep by the clerk of the Privy Council. And the misstep I'm talking about is the testimony he gave earlier this week and the wild and crazy conspiracy theories and also timeline he gave for the SNC-Lavalin scandal. He was talking about people getting shot and all sorts of crazy stuff, and it appears to have hurt the Liberals more than helped them. So here is that report, and take this for the grain of salt, giant grain of salt. I don't know how reliable this information is. So this is more fun and speculation than real news. So be aware of that. Link is in the description. Feel free to read for yourself. Okay. The Buffalo Chronicle is reporting Wernick likely to depart Trudeau government as RCMP probes SNC-Lavalin influence. Right? That's big news. Wouldn't that be incredible if both the principal secretary, GM Butts, and the chief of the Privy Council, Michael Wernick, left? And before, if Michael Wernick actually directly engineered his exit because of the crazy conspiratorial testimony he gave and confirmed, and I'll let the article explain why what he did in his testimony was bad, more or in a more filled out way than just the talking about the crazy stuff he was talking about, because he implicated that, well, he directly said that there was pressure put on to Jody Wilson-Raybould and under testimony. So anyway, again, big grain of salt, everybody. Big grain of salt. Okay, here we go. Following intense criticism of Justice Committee testimony in the House of Commons that was widely seen as unduly partisan for Canada's top government administrator, Michael Wernick is likely to depart his position as clerk of the Privy Council in the next several days, sources close to Cabinet tell the Chronicle. Wernick admitted during hearings on Thursday to pressuring and to conspiring with others in the Trudeau government to pressure former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould to offer a, quote, deferred prosecution agreement to one of the Liberal Party's largest contributors. Despite demands from opposition party members, Wernick did not offer his testimony under oath. The Ottawa-based political operative inside the Trudeau government tells Chronicle that the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, had reached out to Wernick to schedule questioning in the SNC Lavalin matter. The agency is actively investigating the matter, and the PMO is, quote, profoundly worried that former Treasury Board President Scott Bryson might be questioned by the RCMP next week. And yeah, we'll finish it off. Despite the Justice Minister's conclusion that SNC Lavalin did not qualify for a deferred prosecution agreement in early September, Wernick played a key role in coordinating, quote, vigorous months-long lobbying of the Attorney General. His objective was clear and readily admitted under oath. See, earlier in the article they said he wasn't under oath, so that's weird and makes me question the validity. Okay, he wanted Wilson-Raybould to ignore the requirements of that law and to direct career prosecutors to halt the criminal trial of a firm with long history of public corruption and bribery. Wernick also admitted under oath, earlier he said he wasn't, that his motives and the motives of his co-conspirators were economic and political in nature. The deferred prosecution law specifically rejects economic and political reasoning from being considered in determining eligibility. Wernick reports directly to the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and conspired to exert pressure on Wilson-Raybould with Trudeau's top political operatives, including former Principal Secretary Gerald Butts, Chief of Staff Katie Telford, and Finance Minister Bill Morneau. But repeated meetings and phone calls were only part of the pressure campaign. Last December, Wernick is said to have, quote, threatened Wilson-Raybould's senior staffer, Jessica Prince, with ominous warnings regarding the Cabinet's displeasure at the Attorney General's decision less than a month before she was removed as Justice Minister. The position of Clerk of the Privy Council is a historic one in the evolution of British constitutional process, its origins dating back to the Magna Carta. The position requires a non-partisan occupant who is expected to avoid politics and the appearance of bias in political matters. Wow, if you've watched his testimony, you will see how what he said was directly against that. Back to the article. Wernick's emotive and at times accusatorial testimony seemed to violate every norm and sensibility surrounding his position and its place in the parliamentary system. Trudeau's public reference to the testimony only compounded concerns of partisanship. In recent days, Wernick had been described as deeply regretful for the testimony, looking visibly defeated and worried. Wernick holds a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Toronto. And I thought this was an interesting picture here of these two because he's gone. He was left in disgrace. So we've got rumors that maybe the clerk of the Privy Council is leaving, and Miss Wilson-Raybould is telling the chair of the Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights that she wants 30 minutes to lay out exactly what she remembers and how she was pressured, and then she'll stay as long as she wants, or as long as they want, to answer questions about that. So we are in for some very interesting times in Canadian politics very, very shortly. Stay tuned, everybody. And like I said, I don't know, or I may not have said on this take, but I still don't know the outcome of the Burnaby South and York Simcoe and Outermont. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen there too. So much stuff happening, and we get to see outcomes. We get real data. If the Liberals win a seat, I just don't understand it. And I know they're favored to win in Outermont, but I don't get why. Who could vote for that? It's not like they promised to spend $20 billion and they delivered and everybody's like, yeah, we got our money's worth. They promised to spend 10 over $10 billion deficits over a few years and back to budget balance now and build Canada. And they haven't done that. They've spent $20 billion overseas for nothing. What do we get? Nothing. Okay. Thank you for watching, everybody. Check out the peoplespartyofcanada.ca and have a wonderful afternoon and the rest of your Monday.